Hey, I wanted to give everybody an update about the coronavirus. It's getting pretty serious. It has spread outside of China. It is now in 26 countries. It is here. We have 36 cases here. They're all quarantined, and according to Trump, they're all getting better, and we haven't had anybody die yet. So we haven't had any uncontrolled spreading of the disease within America yet. San Francisco has called an emergency situation, even though they have not had one single case yet. I think probably to get money and supplies in order, because it seems like just a matter of time until it gets here. The Princess cruise ship, which was outside of Japan, everyone on board became sick, and there was some Americans on there. They did get shipped back here and are in quarantine. As far as I know, that whole shipment went well, and it isn't spreading uncontrollably from moving them from there to here. So hopefully that is well. They were going to put up a treatment site for the coronavirus in a neighborhood here in California, in one of the smaller towns. I don't really know. I don't think I've been through there. And there was huge community outcry because it was in a neighborhood surrounded by elderly and children, and they didn't want it. So I think they ended up shutting that down. So that's been pretty crazy. Trump has, if you don't know, Trump closed all of our borders back when this all started from anybody coming from China. We've restricted a lot of travel from a lot of places at this point. When it first started, everyone said that he was crazy, and then that was reckless and unnecessary. And now everyone's praising it because we're one of the biggest countries with the most travel that hasn't had an epidemic just break out in our country. So that's been pretty great. Trump also has been saying that when everything warms up in April, come spring, hopefully we'll see a decrease in the amount of people affected, because the coronavirus is very similar to the flu or a cold, which tend to thrive in winter and die out during the spring and summer months. Some people say he's crazy and we need to buckle down for the foreseeable future. But what he says kind of makes sense to me, and some people are agreeing with, like, yeah, it is a flu, so it should get better during those times, which would be good because it's shut down so many markets, and with having to quarantine so many people, the stock market has plummeted due to this unforeseeable thing happening. So that's been crazy. Japan had a crazy outbreak. They've not been terribly successful at containing what's going on in their country. They're not the worst. I mean, China's obviously the worst, but Japan's not like terrible, but they don't seem to be terribly prepared. People aren't terribly happy with how they are handling the situation. And the Olympics are going to be held there soon, and people kind of want a backup plan. Like, what are we going to do if the coronavirus gets completely out of hand? Are we moving the Olympics? What's exactly going to be going on? And there doesn't seem to be any backup plan. They're just like, no, it's going to be fine. So we'll have to see if it is fine. So Italy had one person, and they didn't take it very seriously either. And then now they have the largest outbreak literally overnight. Well, not literally. I guess it's been 2 days or 3 days, from going from like 1 or 2 cases to like a lot of cases, and having to shut down their borders and also spreading it into France and other places. It's been a little bit crazy going on with all of that. And now they're having food shortages. They've put out military to close their borders, not allowing anybody in order to hold on to the amount of cases they have now, and accept people bringing in supplies. But there's videos of empty shelves in supermarkets and people fighting each other over the last cans that there are. So there have been calls to stock up your house now with food, so as to be prepared for any sort of quarantine. Because if it hits your town, your area, you want to hole up in your house and not leave for as long as possible. So you need to get your medications in advance and not be having to run to the store. One, because the supply route of those medications might shut down if coronavirus breaks out anywhere around you or in your city. Two, other people are going to be stocking up and they're going to take a lot of that supply. So if you do it now when we don't have any chance of it, if you can, it can really help you not run out of very important medications. And then having food on hand so you can hole up in your house for as long as possible without having to leave. I have heard people talking a lot about water and stocking up on water. I don't understand where that's coming from. So for me personally, I don't think that's a big deal. Unless you drink solely bottled water, you should probably stock up on that if your water's not safe to drink as of now. But from everything I've seen, the coronavirus doesn't affect water supply. So I don't really understand why you need water. I mean, if your water gets infected, maybe you could probably just boil it on your stove and be fine. According to what it doesn't logically make any sense to me. If you know the reason why they're saying to to stock up on water, and I'm just not getting it, just please leave me a comment. Let me know, because I don't get it. I've watched videos of people who are quarantined in China, and they just talk about running out of food. Nobody talks about water, so I think the water should be fine. But medications, food, if it does hit your area, there could be a shortage. And if you have something on hand, that could be good. I don't recommend going crazy with it and doomsday storage and spending all your money on kits or whatever. But just in case, this is crazy out of control and it is happening very quickly everywhere. And if you just have something on hand, there's a little bit of peace of mind on that front. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what the coronavirus is in case you don't know. It is a respiratory tract infection. It is very similar to a cold, the way the virus is. So there's no cure. There's nothing we can really do about it. If you go to the hospital, they're just going to treat your symptoms as best they can to try to keep you alive. And it shows up very similarly to pneumonia. There's an incubation period of up to 24 days, which is incredibly long. So they did quarantine some people, and they were thinking it was more of a 14-day incubation period, which is really long in and of itself. So they were quarantining people for 14 days and then letting them go home, and then a few days later, all the people who had been exposed, who hadn't experienced any symptoms, were all of a sudden experiencing symptoms. And that's how things keep getting out of hand and going crazy. So if you are concerned and you think you might have been exposed, you could wait up to a month before really knowing that you're in the clear. So that's one way this is really spreading really, really quickly. The people who are affected the most health-wise are very young children and older people above the age of 65, and pregnant women are the most affected. And I'm sure people who are ill or have respiratory issues as it is, this is probably a terrible thing to have happen to them. There is a kill rate of 2%, which is really high, much higher, much higher than the flu. So you have a 2% chance if you contract this to die. Of course, a higher rate if you're older or younger or pregnant. Well, I don't know if the pregnant affects you so much as maybe the baby. And then a critical rate of 5%, where of critical meaning like 2 of your organs shut down. So it is a very serious thing. The government, listening to them talk on it, I feel they are working very hard. I've listened to some House Republicans say that they are in meetings all day long to set up funds for the groups that are in charge of all of this. Hospitals are being prepared. They're stocking up on kits to test people and working on vaccine stuff. But if it's similar to a cold, I don't know if they're really going to come up with something like that. They're working on it night and day. Closing down the borders was genius. They've done a very good job of it not spreading so far. Hopefully that will continue and we'll be able to ride out this wave till April. Maybe it'll slow down then. Maybe it'll be okay. Be careful when traveling. That is a big deal. Maybe don't leave the country. If you do have plans to leave the country, maybe just don't right now if you can. People leave the country and then they get all kinds of lots. Like going on a cruise. It sounds really fun. Corona outbreak. maybe don't go on the cruise. So, which is why the stock market is having a hard time, is because of things like that, people not being able to work, markets shutting down, runs on markets, not being able to travel, shutting borders. It's all just kind of rough for the economy right now. But if we can all just weather through this, maybe less people will die if we all just kind of stay home. So if you hear anybody breaking out in your neighborhood, stay home, don't go to church, don't go to social functions, avoid other people as much as possible, self-quarantine to try to avoid all of this and try not to get sick. Also, I think if you're sick, look it up before you just run into the hospital. I'm pretty sure they're telling people, at least in some places, maybe not everywhere, to call your provider and tell them you think you're sick rather than running into a hospital and getting everyone there sick if you are. They most likely will come to you. They have teams now to like test you and see if you're okay and then send you straight into quarantine rather than exposing you to a bunch of more people. So don't just run into a hospital if you think you're sick. Look it up, be aware, call the help hotlines. All right. Be safe out there. Maybe gather some food if you feel like that's what you need to do. And have a great week. Bye.